The illusion of perpetual peace in the Persian Gulf has officially shattered. For decades, the wealthy nations of the Arabian Peninsula played a very specific geopolitical role. They pumped crude oil, they built glittering, futuristic cities, and they relied entirely on the United States Navy for their ultimate protection. They outsourced their survival to a foreign superpower. That era of quiet dependency ended this week. According to new reporting from the Wall Street Journal, a seismic shift has occurred in Abu Dhabi. The United Arab Emirates is demanding the forced reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but they are no longer just asking Washington to do the heavy lifting. The Wall Street Journal reporting indicates that the Emirates are officially willing to join the military fight. They are prepared to deploy their own military assets. They are willing to fire their own weapons alongside the United States to break an Iranian blockade. This is a monumental departure from their historical posture. The United Arab Emirates has traditionally preferred back-channel diplomacy. They have always avoided direct, symmetric confrontation with Tehran. What is not being said publicly is that this decision is born out of absolute desperation. To the untrained eye, this looks like a loyal regional ally finally stepping up to share the security burden. But the reality behind the headlines is a profound loss of faith in American resolve. Abu Dhabi has calculated that Washington might actually hesitate. They have watched the political signaling from the United States. They realize that American politicians might accept a closed strait to avoid a broader war. If the United States accepts a blockaded Hormuz, the Emirati economic model dies overnight. This changes everything. This is the moment a regional economic power decides it must fight for its own physical survival. They are crossing a historical point of no return. If you want to understand how this evolves, stay with this analysis. We must clearly separate the verified facts from strategic speculation. The verified fact, according to the Wall Street Journal, is that Abu Dhabi has volunteered for direct combat operations. The strategic speculation involves how this radically alters the escalation matrix of the entire Middle East. Let us move into the system-level consequences of this decision. The United Arab Emirates possesses one of the most capable and technologically advanced militaries in the Arab world. Defense analysts frequently refer to them as Little Sparta. They operate advanced fighter jets. They possess highly trained special operations forces. They have spent billions on modern missile defense systems, but as a geopolitical realist, I must point out their fatal geographic flaw. The United Arab Emirates possesses absolutely zero strategic depth. Every major economic asset in the country is located on the immediate coastline. Dubai and Abu Dhabi sit directly across the narrow water from Iranian ballistic missile bases. This is the real problem. If the Emirates join a kinetic strike on Iranian naval assets, retaliation from Tehran is absolutely guaranteed. Iran does not possess a conventional navy capable of fighting the United States, but they possess the largest arsenal of ballistic missiles and suicide drones in the Middle East. When a nation like the Emirates enters a direct war with Iran, the concept of a limited strike evaporates. The Iranians will not waste their precision munitions on empty desert military bases. They will target the fragile pillars of modern Emirati civilization.
Stranded at anchor.
They will target the massive civilian desalination plants. They will target the commercial shipping terminals. This changes the structure of the conflict, not tactically, structurally. You must understand the unique economic paradox of the United Arab Emirates. A country like the United States can absorb a military strike and continue functioning. A vast, continental nation has resilience. The Emirates do not have this luxury. The actual product that Dubai and Abu Dhabi sell to the global market is not just oil. It is the perception of absolute security. They sell a safe haven for global capital. They sell luxury tourism. They serve as the secure logistical hub bridging Europe and Asia. Foreign direct investment flows into the Emirates specifically because it is viewed as an oasis of stability in a burning region. If a single Iranian suicide drone strikes a luxury hotel in Dubai, that illusion of security vanishes instantly. If a missile damages the runway at Dubai International Airport, the entire tourism industry collapses. The wealthy expatriates and foreign investors will board the first available flights out of the country. Capital flight will occur at a speed and scale never before seen in modern history. Therefore, the decision by Abu Dhabi to volunteer for war is the ultimate strategic paradox. They are risking the total destruction of their economy in order to save their economy from a blockade. We must ask why they are willing to take such a catastrophic risk. The logical answer is that a closed Strait of Hormuz is a slow, agonizing death for their nation. A military confrontation is a fast, highly destructive gamble. When faced with slow suffocation or a violent breakout, a cornered state will always choose violence. Abu Dhabi understands that if their oil cannot leave the Persian Gulf, their sovereign wealth funds will eventually bleed dry. They cannot sustain their massive domestic subsidy programs without consistent energy revenue. If the money stops flowing, the social contract between the ruling families and the local population will fracture. They are choosing a military fight because the alternative is systemic state collapse. But this decision forces the hand of every other player on the geopolitical chessboard. If the United Arab Emirates flies combat sorties alongside the United States Navy, what does Saudi Arabia do? Riyadh shares the exact same vulnerabilities. If the Emirates are dragged into a shooting war, the airspace of the entire Arabian Peninsula becomes a contested combat zone. Commercial aviation across the Middle East will be grounded. The global supply chain will suffer an immediate, paralyzing shock. Furthermore, we must look at how this impacts American military strategy. The United States has historically used air bases inside the Emirates to project power across the region. If Abu Dhabi joins the fight, those American bases immediately become primary targets for Iranian retaliation. The United States will be forced to deploy massive amounts of air defense systems simply to protect its own forward-deployed troops. This consumes valuable military resources. It stretches the defensive umbrella dangerously thin. We are witnessing the end of the subsidized American security proxy model. For decades, the United States fought the wars, and the Gulf states wrote the checks. Now, the Gulf states realize the United States might not fight at all. They are preparing to pull the trigger themselves, because what happens next will define the next phase of this conflict. The geopolitical implications of an aggressive, militarized United Arab Emirates are staggering. Iran is no longer just facing a distant American superpower. Tehran is now facing a wealthy, highly armed neighbor that has decided it has nothing left to lose. This creates a hyper-volatile environment where a single miscalculation will ignite the entire energy heartland of the world. Let us move into the operational mechanics of what this conflict actually looks like. We must transition from the diplomatic posturing into the brutal reality of naval warfare in a confined space. If the United Arab Emirates and the United States launch a joint military operation to force the Strait of Hormuz open, it will not be a surgical strike. It will be a protracted, highly lethal campaign of attrition. The mainstream media often portrays American naval power as an invincible force. They imagine aircraft carriers safely launching jets from beyond the horizon. But the reality behind the headlines is dictated by the unforgiving geography of the Persian Gulf. The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly narrow. At its narrowest point, the shipping lanes are only 2 miles wide in either direction. This means any vessel attempting to transit the strait is within visual range of the Iranian coastline. This changes the equation entirely. The United States Navy and the Emirati Air Force cannot simply bomb a few radar installations and declare the waterway safe. The Iranian strategy is fundamentally decentralized and designed for maximum survivability. Iran does not rely on a few large, vulnerable warships. They rely on thousands of small, fast attack craft. These boats are heavily armed with anti-ship missiles and heavy machine guns. They are hidden in hundreds of small coves and civilian fishing ports along the rugged Iranian coastline. Furthermore, Iran has spent decades burying advanced anti-ship cruise missiles deep inside fortified mountain bunkers overlooking the strait. These missiles are mounted on mobile launchers. They emerge from the tunnels, fire their weapons, and disappear back underground within minutes. This is the real problem. You cannot destroy what you cannot find. The United States and the United Arab Emirates would have to conduct a massive, continuous suppression of enemy air defenses. They would have to maintain combat aircraft over the Iranian coastline 24 hours a day. They would have to hunt thousands of mobile missile launchers across hundreds of miles of mountainous terrain. It is a logistical nightmare. It consumes vast quantities of precision-guided munitions, and it exposes Allied pilots to significant risk from Iranian surface-to-air missiles. But the most terrifying threat is not in the air. It is beneath the surface. Iran possesses one of the largest arsenals of naval mines in the world. They have both advanced smart mines and thousands of cheap, traditional contact mines. Before a single oil tanker can safely transit the strait, the United States Navy would have to conduct extensive mine-clearing operations. Mine-clearing ships are slow, vulnerable, and must operate in predictable patterns. They would be sitting ducks for Iranian fast attack craft and coastal artillery. This changes the structure of the conflict, not tactically, structurally. To protect the minesweepers, the United States and the Emirates would have to establish total, uncontested control of the Iranian coastline. This requires escalating the conflict from a limited naval engagement to a massive, sustained bombardment of sovereign Iranian territory. This is where the law of unintended consequences takes over. If the Emirates participate in the bombing of Iranian coastal cities, Iran will respond in kind. They will not target the heavily defended American aircraft carriers. They will target the soft, lucrative underbelly of the Emirati economy. As I established in the first part, Dubai and Abu Dhabi have zero strategic depth. Iran will launch massive swarms of loitering munitions, commonly known as suicide drones. They will mix these cheap drones with advanced ballistic missiles. The goal is to overwhelm the Patriot and THAAD missile defense batteries protecting the Emirates. It is a simple mathematical equation. An Iranian Shahed drone costs around $20,000. A United States Patriot interceptor missile costs over $3 million. Iran can launch hundreds of drones simultaneously. The Emirati air defense systems will eventually run out of interceptors. When the interceptors are gone, the critical infrastructure of the United Arab Emirates is completely defenseless. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It is the core doctrine of Iranian asymmetric warfare. If you want to understand how this evolves, stay with this analysis. The economic fallout of this exchange would be catastrophic. We must analyze the reaction of the global maritime insurance industry. The London insurance markets do not care about military victories or political rhetoric. They care about mathematical risk. If the United States and the Emirates announce they are launching an offensive to open the strait, the insurance premiums on commercial vessels will not just increase. The insurance market will completely freeze. No underwriter will insure a commercial oil tanker entering an active war zone filled with sea mines and anti-ship missiles. Even if the Allied forces successfully destroy a significant portion of the Iranian military, the perceived risk will remain unacceptably high. Without insurance, the major shipping companies will refuse to send their vessels into the Persian Gulf. The physical strait might be cleared by the military, but the economic blockade will remain firmly in place. The world will watch a multi-billion-dollar military operation achieve absolutely nothing for the global energy supply. This is the ultimate trap of the Iranian strategy. They do not need to win the military conflict. They only need to create enough chaos and uncertainty to keep the insurance markets paralyzed, because what happens next will define the next phase of this conflict. We must also consider the geopolitical ripple effects. If the United Arab Emirates is drawn into a devastating war, it fundamentally alters the balance of power within the Gulf Cooperation Council. Saudi Arabia, observing the destruction of its neighbor, will face an agonizing choice. They must either join the fight and risk the exact same destruction of their own cities, or they must remain neutral and watch their closest ally burn. If Saudi Arabia remains neutral, the alliance fractures. If they join the fight, the entire Arabian Peninsula becomes a unified target for Iranian retaliation. Furthermore, this conflict will accelerate the global transition away from the United States dollar. If the Gulf states realize that the American security umbrella cannot protect them from economic ruin, they will accelerate their pivot toward China and Russia. They will seek alternative security arrangements. They will demand that their oil exports be paid in currencies other than the dollar. The foundation of the petrodollar system will crack under the pressure of a sustained regional war. The decision by the United Arab Emirates to volunteer for combat is not a sign of Allied strength. It is a symptom of systemic panic. They are reacting to a perceived American withdrawal by adopting a highly aggressive, high-risk posture. They are attempting to force Washington into a conflict by tying their own survival to the opening of the strait. But as a geopolitical realist, I must conclude with this cold assessment. You cannot bomb a shipping lane into safety. You cannot force a fragile economic model to survive a total war. The United Arab Emirates is playing a desperate hand of poker with its own existence, and the entire global economy is sitting at the table, watching the chips fall.